No,
Sorry.
they're in the room.
Just skip
I'll just take everyone down.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Planning Committee on this day, Tuesday, the 6th of February. Welcome all. I'm going to turn immediately to the first item on the agenda, which is apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Tom Buckley, Councillor Kelly Hinton, the Mayor, and Councillor Rory Hunt, and Councillor Glenn Lambert is substituting for Councillor Hunt.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 2 is declarations of interest. Councillors, do we have any this evening? No, I see none. Thank you very much. And number 3 is minutes. The first one is to approve the minutes of the last planning committee, which was held on the 6th of January. Do I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Roman, seconded by Councillor, Councillor next up, Councillor Plant. Thank you. Sorry.
I was like, I'm not sure who else put that hand up, so I'm not sure.
Do you know, I haven't chaired one of these for a long time, so I may be a little bit rusty, bear with me. And all those in favour, please. Thank you. Okay, and the second one of that agenda item is to receive and consider the draft notes of the Neighbourhood Plan Committee, which was held on the 29th of January. Councillor Plant, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Jackson, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. And item 3 is to receive and consider the draft notes and supporting documentation attached to the Climate Emergency 2030 Working Group, which is a subcommittee of this group, which was held on the 17th of January. Now, there is an item in there, which I believe we do actually need to. There's two. Right, so should we take them both in turn?
Yep.
Where's the second recommendation?
So it's minutes 144,
Oh, yeah, 144,
strategy,
And then
145.
145, thank you. Okay, so I'll read out 144. If you turn to page 16, please. The street strategy and terms of reference. Resolved to recommend to the Planning and Recreation Amenities Committee that the draft tree strategy and terms of reference for a tree strategy working group be adopted by council. Now, did you all get a chance to read the tree strategy?
Yeah.
Any comments, please? Kath, would you like to speak to it at all?
I'd just like to say that I think this, the tree strategy involves quite a lot of work with a working group. I've got 3 members of the Climate Emergency Working Group who are prepared to be on a tree strategy working group. They would also look to bring in expert advice, both from the council's own park staff, but also external advice. It will involve a lot of discussion with landowners really around Henley, because there isn't that much room in Henley. But there are definite opportunities for improving hedgerows and the number of trees that we've got in Henley, which would be good for the environment, good for sequestering carbon. And the tree strategy is going to both planning committee and recreation amenities, because it sort of sits between the 2 committees really. I think that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Jo, did you happen to speak to this at all? No. Okay. Okay, councillor, do you have any comments, any observations at all? Yes, councillor Plant.
Absolutely. Just to hit the nail on the head, but I think as long as it's done in combination with our parks team, we already do a very good job in this area. Yeah, as far as the outside area, what sway that we have on private local landowners around it is difficult at best. We can do our best to encourage, and I don't see how our parks team aren't doing a great job on it already. So be interested to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Support it.
When does it go tomorrow then?
It's going to be next committee, so it's 4 weeks time, I think.
Right, okay, does it have to be carried by both committees?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, I don't have any comments to make, other than surely it can only be a good thing to have a tree strategy and for Henley on Thames.
Yeah.
So, shall we take this to the vote then? All those in favour of passing the resolution? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item is resolved to recommend to the planning committee that a grant of £4,000 be offered to Trinity School out of the Climate Emergency Working Group's budget. I don't know if you know that Trinity School aim to be the first school to get solar panels on their roofs, which can only be a good thing because it's good for the environment, it's going to bring their bills down. And as you know, the schools don't have much money. So it can only, again, that can only be good for the schools. And we really hope that the schools, you know, all follow each other in this regard. Councillor Plants, do you have a proposal or a comment?
Oh, I think it's good, but I'd rather see the grant come to the grants committee rather than going in through a subcommittee to a committee to come to it this way.
Yes.
So I did discuss this with the town clerk, and part of CWG's remit is to help local organisations with funding towards, you know, energy saving measures. And because CWG's got a fairly substantial budget left, then it was felt that it was appropriate to bring it through CWG.
Do they have enough to be fair to all the local primary schools though?
Um,
So I think it's just a day, like, I think it's wonderful, but you know, and I think it is great, but then on the same strand, I'd be encouraging Badgemore, St Mary's, Valley, I've been discouraging, it's like, well, it's great, let's do it for all, because otherwise Trinity being, from my knowledge, one of the better funded primary schools locally, both by their own fundraising and by their occupancy rates in the classroom. I mean, I'd be, as all the primary schools wanted to step forward and do the same.
The Climate Emergency Working Group would really like to encourage the schools, and part of the idea of giving this funding to Trinity is that they'll be used as an exemplar school for encouraging others. I know that quite a lot of the other schools have looked at solar panels, and I think Badgemore had issues with shading, so it just wasn't viable to put solar panels on yet. Obviously it sort of depends on the location, but CWG is definitely very keen on using this as a spur to encourage further energy saving measures around schools.
Councillor Jackson, do you want to speak?
Oh, it's already been covered as to whether it opens the door to all the other schools, but I would encourage it anyway, as long as the budget's there.
Okay. Any other comments from councillors, observations? Okay, well, let's put this to the vote then. Do we resolve to recommend to the council that this grant be offered to Trinity School from the Climate Emergency Working Group budget? Yeah, all those in favour? Thank you, carried unanimously again, thank you.
That is, they're both resolved.
Yeah.
Who's going to, if they don't know. They're both resolved.
Yeah, they're both resolved items. Okay, let's move on then. Item number 4 on the agenda is where we hear from members of the public who have come to address councillors. So who would like to speak first of all? If you'd like to just raise your hands. Yeah, are you speaking as well? One of you?
Oh, yeah.
Are you speaking? Yeah, okay. So you put your hand up first. So if you'd like to go first, and just, if you wouldn't mind standing up and speaking as clearly as you can, and just let us know which planning application you're speaking to, and then you have 2 to 3 minutes.
Well, my name's Mark, it's in reference to 14 Noble Road, which is a direct neighbour
Yeah,
to myself.
thank you.
Okay, shall I start?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you.
My name's Mark Fryer. My family has been residents of Noble Road for 24 years. We object to the retrospective planning application for a garden building and timber pergola and an increase in the fence line, the height of it. The land was consented for development for 30 flats and 54 houses in 1998, subject to a Section 106 legal agreement. The properties were designated as low-cost housing to meet the needs of local people. Although a right to buy has resulted in a few private owners, the majority of properties remain true to the origin of providing low-cost housing. The planning consent did not envisage properties being overdeveloped for the purpose of providing short-term rental opportunities on Airbnb. This deed is a planning obligation enforceable by SODC. The planning consent granted states that no development should be carried out on the land without planning consent. The purpose of this requirement is to protect the amenity of neighbours and ensure satisfactory quality of living environment for residents. The documents submitted with this application lack any detail for many aspects of the proposed development, and most have not been scaled or referenced. The large timber pergola lacks any scale drawing, with only a photograph provided. The photo demonstrates a reduction of natural light into our garden and main living space, equating to 47% of the footprint of the existing house. This is a huge impact on us. The scale, bulk and look of this structure is not in keeping with the area and significantly impacts our quality of living. The construction of the pergola only has bolts holding the legs onto the paving slabs and could represent a danger to people and property in homeowners. The garden room has been constructed tight to the boundary, creating an imposing view for all. The building is a 60% increase in the existing property footprint. The scale and bulk of this building in a modest garden space is excessive and impacts all neighbours contrary to policies DES 5 and DES 6. The garden room has been constructed with the windows overlooking our property, impacting our privacy. The combined footprint of the timber pergola and garden room is an increase of 107% in developed footprint. There are no details of drainage. 492 square feet of development reduces the amount of free draining garden, potentially creating flooding issues. In summary, we object to this planning application on the grounds that its scale and bulk, which impacts our natural life and quality of enjoyment of our home. The development is contrary to the policies of the South Oxfordshire local plan and is not consistent with the ethos of the consented development of the area, which was designed to provide a low-cost housing solution for those that need it, providing them a quality of life, and was not designed to be exploited as an Airbnb enterprise for those that can afford to live elsewhere, whilst profiting from an impact they are imposing on those of us that do not have that luxury. Thanks very much.
No, thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions?
Very thorough,
Sorry?
very thorough.
Thanks. Just took a while.
Yeah, it's good for you to pick up all of the, you know, the plan, the policies in the plan,
Well,
which is
history,
well
or
researched.
how much state was built, so, you
Yeah,
know, it's actually been quite an interesting process.
Yeah.
We found out that, and your picture out on the wall there shows the War Memorial Hospital,
Yep.
which was where our estate was built. And obviously, I mean, I looked back into it and there was a Mr. Noble who granted permission after the hospital in 1925.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a fun exercise, sort of tracing back the history of that piece of land,
yeah.
you know, and the permissions he gave for the Guinness Trust to build our estate, restricting sort of any, and it was done as a low cost
Yeah,
thing for like
in
residents.
perpetuity.
But-
Yeah,
And now we've got this issue, it's just sort of impacted
yeah.
our
No, thank you.
well-being as well. And, so many other different things, but not.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it?
Questions. I'll try and answer.
Okay, no more questions, councillors?
No.
Okay, all right, yes, gentlemen, here, would you like to just stand and give your, you don't have to give your name, but which item are you speaking to?
I'm talking about the demolition of 56 Makins Road. It's a bungalow. I've got the number if you need the
No,
planning.
that's okay, I think I know
You know
what you're
the-
talking about, yeah.
Yeah, we've got.
Oh, looking through, this is the second round now. The first submission of the drawings went in, and the comments have all been put onto the planning site. Website, and we were invited again to do the same again with the amended drawings. Now, first point on the amended drawings to me and all of my neighbours, and if you look at the extensive list of comments on this property of objections, you'll find a similar trend regarding the protection of the stock in Henley of bungalows. The original development, which was approved by a similar group, different group of people, but the layout for the development was so many bungalows, so many houses, yada yada. So that hasn't really changed. And when people buy a bungalow, which I bought mine 3 years ago here, I liked the layout of all the bungalows, single story, not overlooked, fine. What's happened is that in Henley, I've noticed that there are areas of Makins. And Makins Road, I want to describe. I know you lived here longer than me. But if you look at the architect's comments, who's from Huddersfield, not even in this area, he's saying Makins Road is Makins Road. Well, Macon Road, main Makins Road was a curved kind of road. And because the signage put in states Makins Road for my cul-de-sac, doesn't say cul-de-sac. And if you read it in the actual comments from the architect, it's looking like it's part of the main. It's 50 to 60 only. 7 single-story bungalows, not overlooked, nice quiet place, beautiful. This guy is going to knock that bungalow down next to my house and next to an old lady's house that's suffering, her husband's suffering from dementia. She's going to have a double-story property. It says 1.5, it's not, it's a double-story property. You're going to have a brick wall going right up, stopping the view of all the beautiful pine trees she's had all her life. This guy is going to have windows at the back looking into my garden. And also from the front is going to be looking into my bedroom. He says he's going to use the same footprint for this property, but the orientation is facing my house. I can only just see the bungalow roof at the moment. If it's going to be a house, I'm going to see the top windows. So to me, looking at the situation in Henley regarding the erosion of bungalows needed for disabled people, elderly people who desire to have a single-story platform to get about, we want to keep and maintain that stock. You don't want to lose it. And if we keep doing this, it's going to cause issues with that stock, the purpose of why it's there in the first place. So, you know, obviously I've got feelings living right next door to this guy about this. He's had the house for way over a year. He's not even living in it. It's like a developer, I can't say he is, but you know, he's not really worried about the property. He just wants to put it into a house, make it into a house, knock it down, cut out the VAT, and then build this place. That you can ignore, but that's my feelings. And I spoke to this guy in the beginning, before he did his drawings, that I don't want to be overlooked in my garden. I've got a beautiful garden with pine trees at the back, and I don't want to lose that ambiance of why I bought the property in the first place. You know, so I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
If you please look for the justifications and the comments, the large list of comments for this objection is extensive. Every neighbour has more or less said the same thing. You know, it's some of the keywords you guys like.
I'm sorry,
It's some.
each person who participates in public participation has 2 to 3 minutes, and I'm afraid you have gone over that now.
What is
But
it
we-
now? 6 minutes.
But we thank you very much
Oh,
for
yeah. We get old, you just
contributing.
time. I'm sorry.
May I just ask councillors if you have any questions at all?
I think again, you've been very thorough.
Yeah.
What's that?
Very thorough again.
No, I didn't write mine down.
Thank you.
Your 70-year-old brain to remember.
One thing I would like to comment
And my neighbour,
is that I actually moved from Level Close, just around the corner. And like many, I was looking for a bungalow. I rejected a couple because they had houses opposite, that was on the main Makins Road, like a horseshoe. I looked at one, a couple of little closes along that come up, but Matins Road. And I didn't buy it, the garden was too big, etc. And a developer went in there, and he actually wanted to put 2 semis because it was an enormous garden going up. That was rejected because it was a bungalow area. Well, there's no difference between that little close there and the one a few yards away from me off here. As far as I can see, what's the difference?
Yeah, the gardens are extensive, and mine's next to it, and it's an extensive garden. I did an extension last year, single story. My neighbour did a massive extension on his,
I've done an extension on mine, ground level.
massive extension,
And
and single story, and it's beautiful.
the other 2 have,
Thank
everyone
you.
in there
Yeah.
have done an extension on the ground level.
Thank you so much for your contributions. It's very appreciated. Thank you. Okay, councillors, let's move on. We've got quite a lot to cover. So that's the end of public participation. Thank you.
That's good, thank you.
It's okay if I go now then.
You can, or you can wait till we
You're
discuss.
very welcome to stay.
I can
and
discuss this.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll be
okay.
working our way through the agenda. Yeah,
Oh,
point by point.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is plans amended. And this item we found on page 111. It's quite some time since I said that. Okay, so we're looking at P23 S1844. It's a fill application for 56 Makins Road. I'm going to ask Jodie to comment first, please.
Yes, so just heard from some neighbours to this property. The agent's cover letter that they've submitted as part of the amended plans states that the roof pitch has been amended to reduce the overall ridge height to address the concerns raised by the planning officer with regards to the impact on the amenity of the neighbouring properties. And they also have concerns over the flat roof section, which they thought would be incongruous. Yeah. So yeah, we're looking at a 1.5 storey property in this section of the cul-de-sac located amongst bungalows. And as mentioned, there's a number of concerns being raised by neighbours that this would impact on the character and the street scene. It should be considered what can be done with the permitted development there. There's extensive relaxation of those rules in terms of going upwards. So that should be consideration on this. And you recommended approval last time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, thank you, councillors. Councillor Rowlands, you had your hand up.
Thank you. I'm going to recommend refusal. I think we've had a very, very comprehensive presentation detailing the concerns. And I think, yes, I mean, the committee did vote previously in favour of this. And I think, I mean, based on what we've heard tonight, and the subsequent comments we've heard from other residents, I would agree that it is unneighbourly, that it's probably overdevelopment, that it doesn't keep in with the street scene. So, yes, I think recommending refusal would be the right thing to do.
Thank you. Is that seconded? I'm going to second. Yeah. Okay, would any other councillor like to speak?
Could we just get some clarification around 1.5 stories or 2 stories? It seems sort of,
The application states 1.5 in the description.
is that it? So that's a mezzanine or?
It's single and then with dormers on the top, isn't it? It's
Okay, so
so it's within
so
the
you're
group.
fitting in 2
That
floors.
Yeah.
Strictly speaking, if it's 2 floors,
Sorry, end of public participation, I'm sorry.
strictly speaking, if it's 2 floors, the floors on the ground floor continue up in the same plane for the second story. If it's 1.5 stories, the second story is diminutive compared to the first story, so it's kind of rooms in the room.
Okay, well, do we have, I mean, I've got the same notes here. I've got the material planning considerations of privacy, street scene, unneighbourly. But it is unfortunately one of, like our planning officer has said, it's difficult because the government the primary legislation for government now is very relaxed and it's I guess it's a very difficult one to determine really, quite frankly. Councillor Jackson, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, just wanted to raise a couple of points. Looking at the drawings, it appears to me that all of the windows facing the boundary are obscured glazed, so there is no overlooking.
Right.
Is this the one that had pre-application advice originally, but doesn't seem to be on this application this
I
time?
don't recall this
think it
having
has.
pre-application
Was this not
advice,
one
no.
that had to be set further back? No, fine. Yeah. I don't think we'd win this one, even if we refused it, so.
Yeah,
I mean, I can sympathise with the residents up there, but I'm sure we can communicate with you the relaxation in what we call permitted development rights. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Councillor Jackson.
I think also in terms of the street scene, its location is, there's a cul-de-sac. So there are
correct.
houses facing each other in the cul-de-sac. There are a pair of houses at the end of the cul-de-sac, which are all very visible. But this one is tucked into a corner and set back from the building line. So it's quite discreetly located. It's not part of the larger making street scene. So I think uniquely that the corners sit in a different position in terms of their impact or the potential impact.
Oh, well, would any other councillor like to speak at all before we make a decision? No? Okay, well, there's the proposal for refusal, which has been seconded. All those in favour? Okay, so that's, all those against? Okay, that's 3. So it's my call. And of course I seconded, so it's refused. Right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 6, plans new. We turn to page 113, please. Okay, so the first one is P23 S3892, and it's a householder application for 14 Noble Road. I'm going to turn to Jodie for her comments first.
Yes, we heard from the neighbour to this property. They raised concerns in terms of the overall impact on their amenity and concerns in terms of drainage were the 2 main points. The proposal includes a fence that's higher than 2 metres and the pergola, which could have some impact on their amenity. In terms of the garden room, this should be ancillary to the property as being used as a dwelling. It's my only points really.
Yeah.
And is it?
Well, that be conditioned as part of the permission.
Yeah.
And could be looked at separately in terms of whether it needs permission to be used as a short let.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, councillor Plants, do you have a proposal?
Do these plans come anywhere near close to being acceptable?
Well, as the neighbours suggested, they didn't put design and access statement. They haven't got elevations. The pergola's only a picture, so it doesn't seem adequate. I don't know how they got past.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, councillor Jackson.
I think we should be sending a message to SODC about the level of quality of drawings. There's a validation process that we're all supposed to perform to, and this doesn't
Yeah.
even begin to address it. I think we should tone down simply on the fact that it hasn't passed validation.
Yeah.
It can't possibly pass validation, but it's here in front of us. I think we're wasting our time looking at drawings of that quality.
I mean, haven't even used a ruler.
Okay, is that a proposal?
I would propose to reject on the fact that it's not a valid application.
Okay, then we could take it from there because they'll need to come back with another one. Is that seconded? Councillor Plant, thank you. Would any other councillor like to comment? No, okay, all those in favour of refusal on those grounds? That's unanimous, thank you. So just to explain that it's going to go back to SODC for incorrect information to start with. And then no doubt want that, I presume this owner will come back with further plans and it will be considered again. That's what we hope.
Well, we only get reconsulted on amended plans. It's whether we do get a formal reconsult. I'll confirm that when I write to SODC and I'll let you know in terms of what the next steps.
Are you both in touch?
Yeah, I
Yes.
have got your email. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, let's keep in touch.
Yes.
Councillor Plant, did you wish to speak?
If not, do we need to refuse it now anyway?
With the grounds, it would be
Yeah.
more comprehensive in terms of response to
Fine.
cover us.
Yeah, okay. So can I write-
Councillors, would you like to give a response now as well? Or just an outright refusal to consider it on the basis of it has gone through its proper procedure?
The principle won't be amended, it's just they'll give further plans, but yeah.
Yes,
Do we add on neighbourly fence to it, or does that not count?
well,
Yeah,
it should.
you can add, yeah,
Any
unlabeled and
reasons of
the
refusal.
Yeah.
plot and the breach of
As-
the original.
As in one, Councillor Jackson.
I wonder whether if this application didn't exist and another application existed for a rear extension to the property, whether it would fit in with PD rights. And then it might pass a planning permission, but fail if there's some other deed of covenant or restricted covenant in place.
Mm.
Again, we can't deal with the deeds of covenant, can we?
Yeah,
I had a look at the original permission and they need planning permission for any changes, so
Mm.
we'll be dealing with the planning application for this type of development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you prefer us to do? Make a
Um,
decision now for belts and braces?
I would, yeah.
Okay. Councillors, let's do that. Let's make a decision now as well, so that we've got every angle covered, basically, okay. Would you like to hear Jodie's advice again, just to have a recap?
I think you're pretty happy with
Comments.
the comprehensiveness of the letters that have already been sent in. It's about 6 pages long.
if
Councillor
we're going to
Jackson.
refuse on broader grounds, I think we need some guidance on what the ground should say, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, in terms of concerns with drainage, and then the overall amenity impact on
Yeah.
the neighbouring property, the 2 metre fence and the.
Yeah.
I think you see this type of gardening around and, it's got less grounds in terms of overlooking, etc. from that garden.
Yeah.
I think the focus would be better on
Yeah, definitely.
the other proposals.
Yeah.
Loss of amenity and not to be ancillary to the property.
Open development as well.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
remaining ancillary to
Yeah.
the main building, so
Yeah.
it can't be let out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the
so it has
size,
to be having completely,
the massing of it is huge.
Yeah.
It's a big garden. Yeah, am I right in thinking this has been built already?
yeah.
It's always there.
I mean, pictures.
It's retrospective.
It's already let out on Airbnb.
Absolutely,
Yeah. Right.
yeah. Okay, all right, well, let's put, would a council please put a proposal together? Yes, councillor Plants?
As stated, or refusal as stated, as previously. There we go.
As per guided by our planning officer. For all the reasons outlined by our planning officer, is that seconded, please? Councillor Payne, thank you. Okay, would any other councillor like to speak? Okay, all those in favour of refusal? Abstaining? Yeah, okay, one abstention. Lovely, thank you very much, councillors. It's an unusual one. For all the wrong reasons. Okay, let's move on to P.
You're welcome to stay, but you can leave if you wish to.
Yeah, you don't have to stay to hear the rest of the. the planning meeting.
Both the rejections.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Which we read in. Cheers.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is P24 S0001. It's a householder application and it's for 5 Boston Road. Jodie.
Just that it's in conservation area, they're proposing a dormer and a roof light on the rear. There are some other dormers on that street, and you can't really see it from the road or public.
Conservation area.
Yeah, but it is a conservation
Mm.
area. Those were my comments.
Okay, thank you. Any proposals? Yes, councillor Jackson.
Refuse.
Okay, and planning refusal reasons?
when you look at the drawings, it totally isolates the building and shows absolutely no context at all, so we can't tell whether there's any impact at all on neighbours.
Mm.
Can't see what the adjacent properties are doing, whether there's any overlooking or overshadowing or overbearing form to the building.
Okay.
So I don't think we have enough information to make a full decision.
Okay, is that seconded? Yes, councillor Romans, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Okay, well, it's been seconded. All those in favour of refusal? And all those against? Okay, we tied again. Goodness me, this is really, really unusual. Okay, so.
Democracy at work.
Let's get down to Ladbrokes.
My casting vote is. I'm obviously going to go with my own decision. It doesn't always work like that, but yes, councillor Jackson would speak.
Before deciding, could you share your thoughts as to your decision?
Yes, I was just about to do that. I know that road very well, so I do happen to know that it is consistent with all of the other development that's actually along that road.
Yeah.
I'm slightly concerned about the Velux window at the front. So I'm going to go back to the proposer. Who's the proposer?
Can't, so that's been,
Mr. Rowland.
so that's fallen, so now we need to go with a new proposal.
Has it fallen yet?
What has? Because
I'm making a casting vote.
Okay.
I'm using my casting vote. Okay.
you can't, so we can, but technically speaking, there was a recommendation for approval,
I think.
which
we have to-
fell
Show-
on
okay,
a 4-3.
okay.
So now we need to create a new
Okay,
proposal.
let it
That
fall
needs to
then.
go to a vote.
Let's be absolutely clear then that
Sorry.
it's fallen.
Yep.
And I'll make a proposal that it's for approval. But my proposal is that, I'm not, what do you think about this Velux at the front? Councillor Jackson?
Is there an Article 4 on the front? at all?
There is an article.
Well, then
4.
it's a no, isn't it? On the Velux?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it needs permission to be considered, yeah.
Yeah.
The
So,
Article
yeah,
4
would
would
be
stop
no.
anyway, wouldn't it?
You need to seek permission to get approval for it. It doesn't automatically just stop it, does it?
Park Road, Marmion, all of that lot all have an Article 4
Yeah,
that
they do.
stops prevents any change to the front elevations, particularly at roof level, dormers, Veluxes. So I would have thought the Article 4 automatically prevents the Velux at the front.
We've certainly always refused them there because no one else has, so we've kept the street scene to be identical to as is.
Yeah.
Boston.
So the proposal is approval subject to the Velux window being taken out of the development, out of the proposal. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lambert, thank you. Yeah, okay.
Can we do that? Don't they need to come back with a new application? Because if we approve this one, we're approving the application basically as is. If we want it to be removed from the planning application, we need to refuse it on the grounds that we'll only approve it subsequently to it being removed.
So you want to do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can only consider,
You want to
you can only consider the planning application at hand, in which case we refuse it and they need to come back without the Velux and we can put in the comments that we've refused on the grounds of the Velux on the front.
That one item.
Yeah, then they would need to resubmit without the Velux in the application. We cannot approve it
No.
as is. We
You
can
need
only
to
consider it
consider
in
the-
its material format. Sorry, I sound like Ian Iceman. God, I hate myself.
Something, we sound like a terrible bunch of planning nerds, don't we? Going talking about.
I'm enjoying this.
Oh,
Actually.
yeah.
This is great. Let's have the policy and the procedure
Yeah.
correct.
Okay,
And then we can-
what we should do then, again, I'm turning this over again, so this will be a third go at this.
we'll get-
So what we should do then, to be completely consistent with previous decisions on this, is we should take a vote now on my proposal, which was seconded. All those in favour of the last proposal, subject to, and you're going to all say no,
Got you.
Yeah.
right?
I was just thinking
To review.
So that's four then.
Yeah,
Yes.
So the original proposal,
refusal.
right, I'm just gonna do it for quickness, which is for refusal, And the planning reason is that the front Velux is not, is subject to an Article 4 direction, so that particular part of the front should be taken out.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the permitted development rights are removed through that Article 4.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
you
It's
need
conservation
permission
area.
rather than a total ban on. But we can.
Yeah,
I
it-
think
it's
that-
great
that-
that
let's
it's
go-
going to in
we'll just go
Marmion
forward.
and
I think
et cetera,
we'll
is
just go
that
forward with this.
everyone I've seen at the
Please
front has
continue.
been turned up.
I just wanted to clarify, because it matters to me,
Mm.
is there really no precedent, nobody else has a balance in that row?
I'm just double checking it. I'm on it.
I'm pretty sure none of them do at the front.
Give me 3 seconds. Oh, no, there is.
Oh.
Nice.
Let's see some evidence,
But 9 has a balance.
proof of life,
This is Boston Road, Boston Road.
Is that Boston Road?
that is Boston Road. Is that
Maybe
the
it's been
second
removed.
from
The
the
only-
law?
It is the only one.
What's
Spin
the
it round
date
again.
on that street view?
But when was it done?
What's the
When
date
was
on
it
it?
done though? That's the key.
The fact there's one. It means there's one. Yeah. So, I mean, you can still refuse it, doesn't matter.
Thing is do we want another whole line of Veluxes at the front?
No.
I'm sure it matters. If there's one, then
The precedent's been set, I guess.
Stick with you. Stick with that. They can only amend it, can't they?
Shall we stick with that, with the no Velux?
Yeah.
It's been seconded, all those in favour?
Technically, there's no dormers either. but-
Okay, that carries, thank you.
At the back.
Better write some notes in this for the minutes.
They want a reference of article.
Yeah.
So small,
Probably
yeah.
referenced, yeah. Okay, thank you.
We'll
That's
speed
an
up then.
unusual one, wasn't it?
I think we'll speed up now, won't we?
Don't tempt fate.
Gender. Yeah, guess that, yeah, well, but we can't accuse of not being thorough with our decisions, with our observations.
Some comments here next.
It does, okay, so let's carry on quickly, councillors. P24 S0055, which is advertising consent for the Giggling Squid, 40 Hart Street. Yes, councillor Jackson.
Recommend approval.
Seconded, councillor Plant, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? No, okay, all those in favour of approval, thank you. That's carried. And the next is P24 S0156, is a full application for Station News 20 Station Road. Proposal, councillor Plant.
Yeah, I mean, their windows keep getting vandalised,
Yeah.
so approval. I mean, it would look horrible if the whole town did this, but I think only a shop that has suffered as much damage as others.
It's on there that there was some, some work to be done to the property, but I haven't noticed that at all. Did you see that from a neighbour that there was some improvement works to be done to the frontage, but
Not
I
particularly.
haven't noticed it at all.
Nothing in the application.
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah, so is that seconded? Councillor Romans, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Okay, all those in favour? Thank you, that's approved. And the next is P24 S0159. It's a householder application for 5 Valley Road. Councillor Jackson,
Recommend approval.
seconded by Councillor Plant. Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Okay, all those in favour of approval? Thank you, that's carried. And the next one is P24 S0221. It's a householder application for the Lindens, 20 Rotherfield Road. Jodie.
So yeah, this is an extension to the garage, which is going up in height. Just so it should remain ancillary to the main property. It is set back off from Rotherfield Road, so it shouldn't be seen in terms of the character of that area, but maybe ensure it's ancillary. Thank you.
Okay, councillor Plant.
Bigger than a 4-bedroom home, but yeah, let's go for it. I was chatting to Gavin and I was like, well, you know that on Rotherfield Road it's acceptable if no one's turned up in public participation. Otherwise we'd have lawyers and planning agents and all sorts sat here, so they must have had a coffee and a lemon drizzle cake and decided it's okay.
Okay, that's seconded. Councillor Jackson, thank you. Would any other, what do you think about Jodie's point about
No,
it being
definitely, yeah.
ancillary?
Yeah.
Do you want to include that in
Yeah.
your proposal for approval?
Yeah, I think we always
That's
do.
okay with you, councillor Jackson? Okay, so that amendment goes forward. Would any other councillor like to speak? No, councillor Parks, you want to speak again?
On that, is it completely pointless just on there, ancillary note, because whoever enforces it?
Well, this is, I think, I'm going to come to this later, I think, when we start talking about the National Planning Policy Framework.
I mean, who enforces planning full stop? Because I don't think they're ever, even if the decision goes against, like, is it enforced?
Enforcement taken.
Yeah, but don't we have a building on, I know it's just slightly off topic, Berkshire or Western or Bellevue or someone like that, it's a metre and a bit beyond the ridge line that they got promoted.
I think
And
when we
that
come
was
to the
enforced.
next part of the agenda, I think we should talk in the round about this.
Yeah.
But I think for the purposes of
Sorry.
this part of the agenda, let's just
Yeah, sure.
carry on. But any other, is it seconded?
Mhm.
Yes. Would any other councillor like to speak? Okay, all those in favour of approval, subject to it being ancillary. Thank you, that's carried. And the next is P24 S0271. It's a householder application for 3 Wootton Road.
So it's not in a conservation area. The forestry officers asked for some conditions for tree protection and removal of landscaping, approval of landscaping scheme. Removal. The ecologist wants to mitigate against protected species as a condition.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Plant?
Subject to those being met, approval.
Okay, seconded? No? Councillor Owens, you seconding?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Would you like to speak?
No.
No, okay. Would any other councillor like to speak? Yes, councillor Jackson.
Jodie, could I get some guidance on window to window distances? There appears to be 2 windows facing each other in the proposal.
Okay.
From the gable to a neighbour. There's some distances marked on, but I can't remember what the distance, the face to
should
face
be.
is.
No, let me just double check.
It's 9.7 or something like that on the drawings.
Okay. Just double check.
I know it differs whether it's front to front, side to side, back to back, and all that sort of thing.
It's in the design guide, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got listed as 9.276.
Mhm. So these are likely to put it wrong, I think.
He's put a lot of red lines in there just for, thoroughness. That's a side window, isn't it?
Um, 10 metres. Between the walls
Side to side.
and some dimensions, yeah. What did it say on the plan?
9.27.
Okay,
Close.
yeah,
I'm pretty happy with it.
The alternative would be obscured fixed at 1.7, wouldn't it?
yeah.
Which would that make that room?
Also, do we know there's a window on the side of that property?
There are no neighbour comments
No.
as of yet.
Oh, no, yeah. Oh, God, no, should go over.
I think it's close. If SODC support it, the distance, I would go with that. But in addition, I would suggest that we need to condition the materials because it says metal, it just says metal. Is it Corten? Is it polished copper? Is it?
Once we've approved it, we've approved it.
Who's on the prominent part of the development, Phil?
Otherwise, you'd have to approve it. Otherwise, like we're saying, only you'd have to actually refuse it, then they'd have to clarify the materials, then we can approve it. Once we've approved it, they can pretty much do anything.
It would be rare, I think, for SODC not to ask for materials prior as a pre-commencement condition.
Yeah,
then we're just giving advice anyway, so we can recommend approval and then let SDC clarify. Or we'd have to recommend refusal. I'm for approval, so I'll say if I wouldn't like.
Councillors, would any other councillors like to speak to this? No? Okay, so the proposal is with you,
I'm for it.
okay? Did you want any stipulations in there subject to?
Can't, can you look at the plans anyways?
Seconded, by-
What would you like me to change?
Yeah. What are the amendments being proposed here?
I think on balance and on reflection, I would support an approval and let SODC make those two decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah, fine.
So just
are
recommend.
you happy with that as the proposal?
There was one proposal, yeah.
Okay, fabulous. Would any other councillor like to speak? Okay, all those in favour of approval, subject to those two conditions? Thank you, that's approved.
That would be his before this
Okay, let's go back to the main agenda to find our next item,
Let's start that.
which is 7, which is, do we want to call anything in? Did we want to call in the retrospective one at all?
I think so.
Councillor Romans does, yeah, I'll second that.
On what?
Are you going to speak to it or are we telling you how to speak to it?
This is the Noble Road one, 14 Noble Road.
I don't know, we're gonna have to be pretty belt and braces to want to stand up and call it.
Yeah,
I think it's.
Who would speak to the committee?
Tom or Michelle? Sorry, councillor Buckley.
Mm.
Because if you call it in, just for those that don't know, obviously councillor Thomas has been, and might be before, councillor Buckley has, but you stand up and you've got your minutes to talk in the meeting. It's a pretty design policy. Yeah, it's not a, we're supporting the neighbours because they came and gave a lovely speech to us. Like, you've got to be pretty belt and braces to want to stand up and do that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm just saying, I think at best we're pretty 50-50.
I think there are enough grounds for
Yeah.
calling this in. And it's retrospective for a start. Councillor Jackson,
I would agree, but over and above that, I just think that if this is redrawn and gets validated properly, it may actually fit within policy. So I think it is right to take it to call it in.
I'm not sure about that because it's
Conditional.
got conditions
That would be
that need to be completely overturned.
fine.
The original conditions that come with the,
Mhm.
you know, with the plots, how they were built, when they were built.
And that was a planning condition as opposed to a
So
restricted covenant.
that's, yeah, it doesn't really want
Right.
development.
Yeah.
And on those two grounds alone, fine. But I think on the rest of them, they're pretty weak.
Okay, well, let's have a vote on it. Okay, it's been seconded. All those in favour of calling it in? Yep, okay, thank you, that's carried.
We're gonna need to give some Tom some pretty good guidance.
Then there's no others, are there? No. Okay, let's quickly just shoot through the decision notices on 8, agenda item 8. There was one that caught my attention, which was the modification of planning obligation for Wyvale MPO, which is to do with highways.
Yeah.
I've never come across one of those before, ever. Did you have any comments about it at all?
So this is, the sign for the speed changing to 30 and pushing it back closer to Ship Lake. And, they've refused it, yeah, because highways, were objecting to it in terms of highway safety issues.
I'm amazed that they would call that out and not the aquifer, but
It's a silly.
what do I know?
Traffic.
That silly aquifer that sits underneath the, under the plots. Right, okay. Any other comments on that agenda item?
I just think on that, it's a great decision not to move it towards, in towards the development. It's better to move it towards Henley, because then Wyvale will be safer anyway.
Yeah.
about the 30th speed sign around that place anyway.
Keep changing with that.
That's what I mean, like, that has been the most, it's almost becoming dangerous, that whole section of Shipwrecks. It's like 30 to this, to that, to up, to down, to 30 to up, and it's like the luminescent one is could sort of the one that shows you sign is completely obscured by bush now anyway. I mean, it's not to mention there's so many traffic lights that you can't get above 20. It's all irrelevant. It's a waste of taxpayers' money.
Okay, right, let's move on. Item 9, certificate of lawful development applications. We've got P24 S0095, which is Barnfield on a Fair Mile. And it's a proposal to infill the area between the existing utility room and existing external building that contains a pool shower room, plant and boiler room for a house by extending the existing utility room. And that is permitted. That falls under permitted development.
I don't think we'd object to it.
And the next one is P24 S0192, which is 43 Blandy Road. And it's an erection of a single story rear extension.
Yeah.
Permitted development. Okay,
Get more and more.
I'm surprised in my time on planning, it hasn't completely switched around. Right, okay, next, number 10, the appeal decision is just to note the appeal decision of the planning application for Thames Farm. Jodie, did you want to speak to any of this at all?
I could just read out a little tiny bit of the conclusion of the inspector's report. So in this case, the nature and scale of the groundworks is such that they would be an engineering operation in their own right. It would have likely planning consequences that indicate that would be different character to the permitted scheme. The works were not permitted by the outline commission and therefore require planning permission. So they need to come back with planning for that.
Common sense decision, I think. Okay, item 11, which is the National Planning Policy Framework, and Jodie's just giving us a verbal update on this item.
Thank you. Yeah, so this was published on the 19th of December last year. There's the main focus is on housing delivery. There's an emphasis on preparing and maintaining up-to-date locally prepared plans, both local and neighbourhood plans. It confirms that the standard method for calculating housing need in a local authority is an advisory starting point. So the advisory is added there, but adds that exceptional circumstances will be required for using an alternative method. Local authorities, so SODC, with an up-to-date local plan will no longer need to continually show deliverable 5-year land supply. It does also include greater protection from speculative development for neighbourhood plans for 5 years after they're made that allocate for at least one housing site. So that would apply to Henley and Harpston until December 2027. Older people has been added to the list of specific groups for which local authorities must consider meeting their housing need. There's no requirement now to review greenbelt boundaries at each local plan review, and this is a choice of the local authority. Community-led housing has been given greater encouragement. Local authorities should now support the development of exception sites for community-led housing on sites that would not otherwise be suitable for rural exceptions, but they have to be no more than 1 hectare in size. There's a greater emphasis on local design codes. There's been significant weight given to the need to support energy efficiency and low carbon heating improvements to existing buildings, both domestic and non-domestic. And there's more inclusion of the word beautiful when talking about well-designed places. If you have any questions.
Is there any definition of the word beautiful? I've been trying to work that out. Very useful addition.
Still talking about housing.
So there's a real mixed bag in there. Try and unpack all of that.
Suitably vague.
I mean, we've been, I think one of the best things to come out of this really is the 5-year pernicious 5-year land supply. Which constantly, produces speculative development. And the amount of development that's gone through here in the parishes because of that 5-year land supply is phenomenal. It's extensive. So, any other observations about this piece of primary legislation at all? Planning policy?
We discussed it the other day, didn't we?
I mean, there's still something like 1 million planning permissions out there that are just sitting there being land banked by developers. I mean, that is something I think that is a missed opportunity to address.
Well, they're all time barred, though, aren't they? So they'll just run out.
But don't they go and put a spade in the ground and put some kind of
Commence.
one?
I think there's been a
Bit of
change in
change.
planning law, or there's an emerging change in planning law about what constitutes a significant start, and it's up to DPC now.
That's
I
good.
think it's moved because of that.
Good. That's good news. So something that I wanted to suggest, I don't know what you think about this, and I don't actually know what Tom would think, who's the chair. There's a piece of legislation that came out in October, which councils have jumped on. They are absolutely jumping on this up and down the country, which is the Levelling Up bill. And I'm wondering if you would do another verbal update for us at one of the next meetings. Yes, Councillor Jackson.
When you say jumping, you mean support or against?
In support, they are using, like they are clinging to this like never before and rolling it out as quickly as they can.
Okay.
And the two items that they're particularly jumping on, because we do have a housing crisis or population crisis, whichever way you look at it, is the second homes. They're now charging double council tax for second homes and also for empty homes. But also, there is something out there, I'm not sure it's actually connected to this, is councils are now looking at their short-term let market in their planning regions.
So yeah, the MPPF changes came out of that, so there's things that I could mention in terms of an update, but it's a vast bill, but yeah. In terms of the
top sort of,
the
top
council
points.
tax is not planning related, so
Yeah.
limited we could do in terms of that. And then the short sets, I think we should talk about at the next agenda item in terms of local plan, because that's something we can actually.
Yes, let's do that. Let's move on to that one then. Would you do that?
Encourage.
Would that be?
I'll look at it in terms of, and I can talk to you in terms of what update you'd want, but
Yeah.
yeah, maybe at the next full meeting. We could do some sort of update.
Right, okay. So let's move on then to, thank you for that update. That's really helpful. Number 12, local plan consultation, again, verbal.
Yeah, so this is the preferred options consultation. It's running for another couple of weeks. The Neighbourhood Plan Committee considered this last week at their meeting, and their response is included in the agenda pack, pages 11, 12 and 13. So the main points that the Neighbourhood Plan Committee raised were they were overall supportive of the strategy for Henley as set out in policy SP6, as there would be no outstanding housing requirement for the new plan. They focused on the response on housing policy, so they wanted to highlight that affordable housing should be truly affordable and better reflect local incomes, encouraging social rent. They wanted to do more in terms of retaining 1 to 2 bedroom properties through the housing mix policy HOU4, and then Councillor Thomas's point in terms of discouraging short-term lets. Also in terms of the accommodation for older persons policy HOU5, they had concerns that they don't want to see affordable housing being displaced by extra care and other forms of older persons accommodation. SODC are currently looking at evidence of need, and they felt that this need should look at the different types of tenures, so focusing on each town and what the need would be for extra care, supported living and care homes, to know specifically that need. So those were the comments from the neighbourhood plan committee that I was going to include in our response. I just thought it might be worth mentioning in terms of the short, let's maybe adding a comment on the policy JT7, which is on overnight visitor accommodation, and referring to the Oxford City policy, which currently states that proposals for new holiday and refurbished holiday and short stay accommodation must not result in the loss of residential dwellings or have unacceptable level of noise or disturbance. So whether we could try and seek some sort of amendment to policy JT7 in that respect. But yeah,
so Councillor Plant, this goes back to your, thank you for that, Jodie. Councillor Plant, this goes back to your points about the amount of loss we're seeing in Henley, with you know, properties that would normally be on the open market for rent, and also you know, the disturbance the gentleman was talking about there of having, you know, and garden rooms being used as Airbnbs. So we've seen a number of these, well, I think a lot of them kind of are supposed to be kind of, well, they describe them as granny annexes, and then once they're built, guess what, there's no granny. Yeah, it causes issues, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm like fully in support of doing something about it, but I think Henley-on-Thames is one of those towns where, to a lesser or greater extent, it happens in all sorts of guys. It's like even Henley Regatta, or Women's Regatta, or Henley Festival. I mean, multiple people rent out their home for a month and basically move out of the area to put, you know, so from a small scale like that, all the way through to renting out an annex in your back garden for one weekend a month. I mean, it's like, controlling it and enforcing it is a whole different, you know, thing. I think for many homeowners in Henley, it's like multiple people make 2, 3, 4x an annual salary just in renting out their homes for weekends or days here and there. It's like, where you even start to do anything about that? I think it's, as much as I would love to see it done, I think it's a near impossibility. Which goes back to my point on, I think enforcement nationally is laughable. I think it's a word that we band around to say, well, you know, enforced. It's like, I personally, in my tenure on the town council, haven't seen anything enforced.
It's pretty meaningless if it's not going to be enforced.
I mean, it's pointless. And like, I'm horrible this is being recorded right now, but you know, I don't think even if that Noble Road is enforced, I don't think in the span that I'll still be remaining on the town council, I'll see it leveled to the ground. Like, it won't happen. Hasn't happened for a single planning application I've seen.
Yeah.
I've seen something that's about to be bulldozed quite recently.
That's good.
Unusual.
Yeah. Which I think it generally relies on the homeowner themselves.
But you know, there's, you know, we've constantly said, you know, ancillary to the main building, ancillary, and then, you know, nothing gets done. You know, it gets turned over, it gets rented out, and the enforcers don't seem to keep tabs on it at all.
Well, it would come down to some sort of, whether it's HostSmart, that new place in town, or Airbnb, or whoever it is that's doing it, needing to check whether they have the appropriate planning for it to be able to do so, which nationally, as far as legislation goes, there's nothing in existence to check and do.
But it is
so
definitely coming up a lot more in Henley. Councillors are being contacted a lot more
of course,
about the disturbance of energy.
Like that, but all ancillary does is stops them selling it or subdividing. There is no control on to whom you rent it to, and to some extent, you know, playing devil's advocate to it, it's of great benefit to the town. I mean, people that work in many restaurants and places like that would have literally nowhere to live unless they had a outbuilding or bits like this that
Yeah.
someone could rent them to, because systematically over the last few years, I was reading that bit on HMOs earlier, it's like the fact that we've got rid of all HMOs and Henley effectively means that workers have nowhere to live. You know, we've turned them into £600,000 apartments with, you know.
Mm.
and, you know,
But where like whole houses and whole flats are being let out on Airbnb, for example, and being taken out of the rental market, that is going to affect the availability of people to be able to live here, young families, for instance,
well, of course, it's
and
Yeah, but-
our schools emptying out. So, you know, there's a balance to be struck here. And I think the balance in Henley on Thames is starting to go in a dangerous direction. And I think if we can get some feedback to for the next local plan in this regard, I think that would be,
Yeah.
I think that would be a good, I think we, for me personally, we would not be doing our jobs properly if we didn't point this out to the local authority.
I think you need to write to the housing minister. I mean, this is a top-down piece of legislation.
But this is why I'm saying, you know, these sorts of legislation, which is, you know, councils have been screaming out to be able to do something about second homes and empty homes and, you know, short lets, and now they're starting to get, you know, the power to do something about it. And our planning authority need to wake up and really start doing something for Henley now. It's a completely different town to the other towns in South Oxfordshire. It's unique in that regard. You know, really, I don't want to talk too much about
Well, I think we're all in.
what we talked about at
Yeah,
the joint Henley and Hobson neighbourhood plan, you know, in
Well,
that meeting.
I think we're all in complete agreement. We can certainly comment back on it, but I think as a council, we need to do something stronger to literally like to the
Yeah.
housing minister. and-
But I think, yes, Jodie.
SODC are, as part of the local plan, are looking at, well, they have commissioned evidence and looking at the adverse impact on the existing housing stock in terms of short-term that, so it'll be interesting to see.
For the whole district or just
For the whole
Henley?
district.
Whole
So
district.
it'll be interesting to
So
see.
that is interesting because I went to the meeting and I spoke to two of the policy people there that day and they didn't have a clue what I was talking about.
Mhm.
So that's good to hear,
Yeah.
you know, that they are actually, but they didn't have a clue about, you know, the sort of work that we do behind the scenes for the joint Henley and Hobson neighbourhood plan, which we discussed last week.
Well, I think there's case studies on this up and down the country. I'd almost suggest you to commission a study on it.
You know, I mean, there are parts of this country which are being hollowed out and the schools are closing. Parts of London, parts of Brighton, parts of Devon, and it's going to start happening here. There won't be any school children to fill the schools because of these sorts of trends that we're seeing.
So
So,
in terms of a response,
should we
should
take
we
a
go
vote on it?
in terms of, in line with the neighbourhood plan committee response, and then added an additional point about short-term lets?
Councillors, are you happy with that? Should we have a vote on it? Or discuss, did anyone want to speak? No?
Proposal is.
Yeah, sure. So it's to do with the,
Oh, I didn't know if you were joking.
are you joking or not?
To agree with the response already provided by the neighbourhood plan committee with the addition of
Which any of
further
you are welcome
reference
to
to the
see.
short-term lets.
It's policy JT7.
Tried to look it up, but I couldn't.
The neighbourhood plan committee minutes have got all the points that Jodie went through.
On
Yeah,
11, 12,
page
13,
11,
yeah.
Page 12, 13.
Okay, so yes, councillor Jackson?
I'm voting to support
Yeah, okay. All those in favour?
and speeding up a bit.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Right, let's have a look. Any more? Progress report for applications called in. Any more news on that front?
19 Reading Road was approved at SODC planning committee.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay. Did anyone, who spoke to that?
councillor Jackson.
Hmm.
He spoke well. He spoke
Good.
very well, yeah.
And next one, which is no other updates. Need to go through them all really.
No, just the
Um,
shopfront design guide, the neighbourhood plan committee are.
Oh, you're talking
Looking
about
at
the agenda item
Oh, sorry.
14.
Oh, yeah, no, progress,
Okay.
yeah, nothing else.
Okay, yeah, and agenda item 14,
I've got it.
quickly.
Yes,
Yeah.
top one. These design work, fund design work, quotes are due back from companies by the end of this week for that, so then.
Great, that's great news. Yeah, we've had some slow movements on that. That's great news. Article 4 direction design guide and local plan. We've discussed that at quite some length. I think we can have a rest on that one, to be honest, and come back to it another time. And the update of the shopfront design guide.
Yeah, the neighbourhood plan committee are looking at this. It's been amalgamated with the design guide, so the specific references that are relevant to the committee are in the SODC design guide now. So the neighbourhood plan committee are looking at this further in the society as well.
Great. Okay, well, I think that's it. That's all. Thank you very much for your contributions, councillors.
Thank you.
Thank you.